I wanted to do a follow-up video to chronicle the progress in this no-till planting space. Is that there's no overhead structure any longer. That structure was damaged by a snowstorm that came through about a week and a half ago. I had to remove it in its entirety, but what it was designed to do is isolate this space from birds coming in and attacking the young shoots that I've planted in here. Over the course of about the last 3 weeks, I've been every day just removing a bit of this cover crop out of here, taking it over into the chicken yard, and then covering this with pallet sheets and amending it with compost. Now, this planting space is a no-till area that I've been trying to develop. And so I will be using a broad fork in here to decompact this soil, but there'll be no tillage in here. And one of the things that I've planted in here is daikon radish, because they send down a long taproot, which helps to decompact the soil naturally. What I wind up doing is, instead of pulling these out, I will just cut them off at the surface level, cut these off, and then they will stay and remain in the soil and essentially become food for the soil life that will consume that. But if I pull one of these out to show you, and there's worms down in there already, right there. But those worms will consume this in place in the soil. And a lot of these will get a lot deeper than what these are currently. But I go ahead and leave these, and then I just cut them off, leaving them in. These tops will be brought out and brought to the compost yard. But again, that material will decompose right in the soil. Yeah, I've already gone through this space a little bit, so there's not much remaining, but what I'll do is I'll come through and I will cut this out with my knife, probably in about an 8x8 square at a time, and then I'll come through and amend it with compost, cover it with pallet sheets, and put wood chips over the top. So in about a month and a half, I'll be thinking about coming in here and decompacting this and getting ready for planting season. There's a couple different options I have with regard to this area and this material. I could just chop and drop it and leave it in place, cover it, and allow it to decompose in place. However, I'm going to go ahead and just leave the root structure from these plants in place and intact. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this herbaceous layer completely out of here, take it over into the compost yard, compost it with my chickens, allow them to take first crack at it and browse on this material. And then what they don't eat will decompose and turn back into soil. Spend a few minutes each day coming over and taking this material out. I'll leave some back. Doesn't have to take it all out in its entirety. And I haven't yet determined what I'd like to plant in here fully, but I think I would like to plant some corn. Maybe some sunflower, but again, I may wind up doing kind of more of a Three Sisters type of a guild in here. See if we can get something like that to work. But this soil is looking so much better than what it looked a little more than a year ago when this was just dry, barren. It was actually a little bit more red in color, had a little bit more of the iron oxide that we have here in our red clay. That it's just not that fertile of a soil. It was very neglected, dry, just wasn't really growing that well. But I decided to turn this into kind of an experimental planting space. And I was pretty happy last year with the yield that I was able to get out of here. And then I'm a little bit more optimistic this year because I'm coming through and I'm seeing the results of what I've been able to do in here. I mean, there's a lot of charcoal. This has been amended with compost from our chicken yard. I've been able to bring in those sorts of inputs, covered this, kept it in a state where it's protected from the elements. And I think I'm starting to see some of the benefits of that. And this has not been tilled. I have decompacted it with my broad fork. That is something that I will be doing again prior to planting, is I'll be coming through with my broad fork, decompacting this, and then preparing the soil for planting somewhere, around April after we get through the frost season. Now this is compost that's made over in the chicken yard, and I'm just going to bring it in and scatter it across the top of this soil to the best of my ability, trying to replicate what nature does. I want to be able to provide some form of cover to the soil so that it will be protected and encourage that development of soil life. And then I want to keep a living root in the soil for as long as possible, which is what we've done with that cover crop that I just removed. Another thing is to minimize soil disturbance. Nature doesn't till the soil, it doesn't rototill the soil, and that's something that we've done for many years in traditional agriculture and traditional gardening, is tillage of the soil. But in doing so, you wind up breaking up the soil structure. In this soil structure, when I get down and I look at it, you can see the aggregation of the soil itself, and that's really what I'm trying to develop. So I don't want to disturb that. I want to keep that intact. What I'm doing here kind of finally is returning that fertility to it. So this material is the compost that I've generated here natively on the property. I'll probably add a little bit of coffee grounds to this as well, and then go ahead and bring my pallet sheets in, cover this, come over the top of that with my wood chips, and then this will, all of the remaining material in here will die back over the course of the next month and a half. Next, I'll lay out these pallet sheets and cover the soil. There's a fairly sizable pile of these wood chips that are probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2 years old, so they're very finely aged. They have a lot of mycelium in them, and you can see they're just a really well-developed wood chip. But I have access to these large stockpile that's like less than a mile from my house, and I wind up bringing this home for projects like this, that I want something a little bit more developed, a little bit finer. So these will work really good in here now that I've got this entire planting space amended and covered. I'm going to go ahead and let it rest for probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about a month and a half, at which time I'm going to plant it with something. I haven't yet determined what that's going to be, but I'll keep you advised. Thanks for watching, and please consider subscribing to the channel.